Does the packaging of my product really make a difference in sales? Business Questions Answered Here, episode number 41. This is Business Questions Answered Here. I'm J. Cleveland Payne, an independent business strategist with over 20 years of experience, using that experience and knowledge to hopefully answer some of your questions and save you some of the pain and hassle that I personally had to suffer. My business life has been filled with plenty of wins, even more losses, and the realization that knowledge is power, and I am allowing you to gain some of your own power by transferring knowledge I personally learned myself, plus input from other veteran business partners. For more information about how you can get your business question answered on this podcast or about any business services my company offers, visit the website businessquestionsansweredhere.com. This episode is sponsored by Blinkist. More on the sponsor in a moment, but first let's get to the first question of the day.
Question number 1.
And that question comes from Ken, who is asking about littering packaging on their product. And the question is simply, does the packaging of my product in the sales process really make a difference? It's a simple product. It should be a simple sale. Do I really need to go all out in what looks like in the box? And the answer to that quick question, well, my standard answer, my kind of cop-out answer to most things is maybe, and that's the case here. Basically, anything in business is a maybe. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't work for you. But in this case, it is always important to keep a keen eye on the packaging, because the packaging does matter in more ways than you think. Here's a perfect non-business example. Every morning, I drink a glass of warm water with lemon juice and apple cider vinegar. And I also, every day over the course of the day, drink a large bottle of fruit punch that I get to sip on throughout the day. One day, I was not paying attention and placed the bottle of fruit punch on the floor next to my desk. Next to that happened to be, for some reason, because I didn't put it away, the bottle of lemon juice and the bottle of apple cider vinegar. I turned in my chair, saw a bottle with some liquid in it, picked it up, opened it, took a swig, and found I had taken a good swig of apple cider vinegar. Not exactly what I was expecting when I was looking for sweet, sugary fruit, and I got apple cider vinegar. If I'd been paying better attention, I would have seen that the labels would have been different, but for all practical purposes, the bottles were the same shape, the same size, and the same amount of liquid essentially in there. So I overlooked one, saw another one, didn't even take time to manage to see the color was brown versus pink, and took a swig of the apple cider vinegar. That's an issue where your packaging makes a difference, because you want to make sure that you can tell what you're getting is what you're getting. It should be labeled pretty prominently what's going on. You don't want children to inhale any poison because the packaging that they see looks like candy. And for example, we had a independent candy maker here in town that had a thing they did for special events where they put candy inside of medicine bottles and basically pill bottles for special events. And they got sued because somebody's child saw candy in the medical container and then saw a medical container that was not candy and tried to take the candy that wasn't there. So your packaging matters for the sake of knowing what it is, telling what it is, distinctly knowing what is inside of the box, what's inside of the bottle, what's inside of the carton. Now, on top of that, maybe it doesn't matter, or maybe it does matter, just how fancy your packaging is. Some people want the pretty box. I mean, a Tiffany's box is packaging for what could be a very small standard ring or a very large, very gaudy ring, but you don't know until you open the box. And as long as you just hold out the box, people will be impressed on its own. In the same vein, back in the old days when it had the generic foods and it was literally a white box with the word cornflakes or flour or powdered milk, it was distinctly there for very cheap production value to just put out a box, and so that you could see the difference between the generic and the regular. Nowadays, they've replaced that subsidy for that processed stuff by the government with the store brands, so they all look the same, and no one really cares which one you get. So in those cases, you would think that the cheaper store brand can be displaced by the bigger high name brand. But in most cases, since most boxes are pretty, you don't know the difference. But if you have a clientele that does not want fancy packaging, then it matters because you need to make it simple, effective, and of course, tells exactly what's inside the box. If you have clientele that really digs the fancy packaging, you need to make it elaborate and pretty so that they are made happy. And if you are basically looking for people who are wandering by the shelves and just blindly making a pick, you want to make sure that packaging is attractive. It doesn't have to necessarily be anything specific, but something that can catch their attention, catch their eye, and yes, tell them that this is the product they're looking for. And in that split moment, make them want to go for the joy of picking that pretty box at that point in time. So your packaging matters in the sense that it should actually tell what you're having inside of the package. But does it matter to your customers? Depends if your customers just know what they want or if they really, really want something pretty. Or the third option, you have a customer who's just blindly picking something off the shelf and you need to basically have the pretty bird for the process of them choosing that one. Business Questions Answered here is a podcast, but is also a part of my business and is one of the part of my business where I'm literally giving back to you guys, but it is also takes up resources and takes up time. So if you'd like to help out with the efforts here for Business Questions Answered here or any of my podcasting work, you can simply go to this website, buymeacoffee.com/J Cleveland Payne. That's buymeacoffee.com/J Cleveland like the city, Payne. And all I'm asking for you to do is buy me a cup of coffee. You can buy me a cup of coffee infrequently whenever you hear some really good stuff. You say, hey, this is good content. Let me help this guy out. You can become a regular contributor, basically buy me a coffee every single week, if you will, and keep me caffeinated and keep me going. And see other things that you can get allowed to do by going to that website, buymeacoffee.com/J Cleveland Payne or businessquestionsanswershere.com/buymeacoffee. It's a link that goes back to the same link. If what we're giving you is great content and giving you mostly for free, you want to help me be able to continue to give this content, try out buymeacoffee.com/J Cleveland Payne.
Question number 2.
Question number 2 this day comes from JoAnna, and she is trying to put on some more staff. She needs to hire up staff, and she's essentially asking, how do you find the right staff? How do you figure out who is going to be the people you need to bring into the staff? And what I have for her today are my 3 things to consider when making your hiring decisions. So first off, you find a pool of candidates that are going to be able to offer you the folks you need to see. And if you're in a very, very tight schedule, very big need for folks, you may widen that net to something, place in people that you might not normally consider. That doesn't mean they're not going to be good enough for you to hire, but you may need to just kind of reach out in some cases just to make sure you can get in the right people. Now, the 3 things to consider, starting off number 1, which is more or less the more shallow one, but their general attractiveness. And that doesn't mean you have to pick all the bombshells and all the beefcake that you can find so that you have pretty folks at the register. But you do have to make sure that they are attractive to your customers. They look like your customers. If you're selling to farmers, they look, act, and talk like customers. If you're selling to teenagers, they are teenagers or at least youthful looking and can speak the language. You want to make sure that the people you're hiring in look like the people they are going to sell to. That's what attractiveness is. And of course, looking pretty always helps, but that's not what we're pointing to in attractiveness. We're pointing to, are they attractive, as in do they attract in the crowd that you need? The second thing to look into is their competence in the role you're putting into. And yes, you may not know this off the bat, but you can get a sense of how well they'll probably fit in if you do a proper interview and ask the right questions and have them do some examples of the things you're asking to do. So if they can basically do the basic functions of what you need to go on, or they can do advanced functions, that's great. Now, what you need to worry about is, of course, the advanced functions. They may be overqualified for the job. They may have more skills than the position that you want to offer them is there. That's not a bad thing, but it is a thing to consider exactly how competent they are. If they reach a basic threshold, then you're good. If they go beyond that, you're better. If they seem to be a bit over and above what you need, you might have some reservations, but if they want the position, you can offer them the position for whatever works out. And the third thing to consider for this job is their passion for the actual job and maybe your company. Now, a person that is overqualified for the position may just want to do this on a small part-time basis, which may be what you're hiring for because they love the gig. Something I do for my radio stuff. I have been a radio producer, a radio program director, a radio manager. I've worked on the upper echelons of local radio for many, many years, and now I don't. But I still work for a smaller radio station group in my city, and I do some of the smaller work because I love being in radio. So because of that, I am well overqualified for the job title and positions and the work that's there, but I go in for there because I have a passion for the job and I kind of like the company and the people I work with. People who have a passion for the job, passion for the industry, passion for the company will be loyal to you despite whatever is going on. They will find a way to turn themselves into someone attractive to the customers who can talk to them, even if they don't seem like they're on the front end. And they will find a way to become more competent in their roles because they like being there. People who want to be there are usually the first people you should look for. But they also have to fit the role and be able to do the work. So when you're hiring people, I'm not sure where your talent pool is coming from, JoAnna, but make sure they fit those three things. You go through those three deciders when you do the interview process. Make sure they are attractive to the customer base. Make sure they have the competency to get the work done and see how much passion they have for the work. And for sometimes the passion may just be you're paying them. And that is fine if you're okay with that and they're competent in their work. And of course, they don't scare off any customers. This podcast also has sponsors as well, so we hope that you will enjoy using them. You can find more of them at our website, businessquestionsanswered.com. And the one we're going to highlight today right here is Blinkist. You can see more about what they have going on at businessquestionsanswered.com/Blinkist. One of the lines you'll hear over and over again from business philosophers and social media experts and personal development gurus is how readers are leaders, and people who read a lot have the tendency to be people who are in the lead, which is true. And you'll also hear them often talk about how much they read, which may not be so true, because if people are in the process of trying to become a better leader, chances are they're really, really busy and can't find the time to sit down for hours and hours a week to go through lots and lots of books. And there's plenty of great books out there, and of course, plenty of not so great books out there, but who has all the time? I'm a person who does not have that much time, but I found a way to skirt around that time, cheat a little bit with the Blinkist app. If you go to businessquestionsansweredhere.com/Blinkist, you'll get a link for a free trial of the Blinkist app. And what Blinkist does is it gives you the best of great nonfiction books and the newest ones as they come out within weeks of being published, the best nonfiction books that people are talking about and some that you've never even heard of. It gives you a chance to take in that information in what's called blinks, basically 15-minute audibles or readable sections of the book. So you could read a book, like read the pages or at least the blinks that are the main points of the books in about 15 minutes. Or if you're that busy, you can listen to it play in the background while you're working. I am able to go through about 10 books a week, at least one a day, because of Blinkist. And it is something that has been a crucial part of my journey in growing business in the last few years. We have a great deal for you. Free trial of the app at businessquestionsansweredhere.com/Blinkist. BLINKST. businessquestionsansweredhere.com/Blinkist, or stop by our website and click the links there at our sponsors page. And check out any of our sponsors there to help keep Business Questions Answered Here on the air quotes, which is the podcasting platforms.
Question number 3.
Final question for the day comes from Micah, who is dealing with his side hustle, trying to get things going. But seemingly it's a saturated market. And the question he has is, how do you make yourself distinguished in a market that is saturated, especially if you're doing something on a side hustle level and not trying to break up big? And the advice I have for Micah today is to use what you see in a saturated market. Use all the people in it. The fact that it seems like there's way too many as your social proof, as your proof of concept, as in the fact that people will apparently buy it from someone, even if there seems to be too many people buying it or selling it right now to make the market hard to get into. That doesn't mean you're not going to have trouble getting into the market and breaking through. That just means somebody's probably buying the product. If there's too many people trying to sell it, there is the assumption that there are plenty of people trying to buy it. Now, check that out first. Make sure that people are actually trying to buy that product. You said it's a side hustle, so you're not worried about this necessarily making any big money right now. But make sure that people are trying to buy whatever it is you're working your side hustle to do. And if it seems like there's too many people in it, maybe it's something like a Scentsy thing where everybody's selling candles, or a nutrition thing where everybody's selling some sort of supplement. People want supplements, people want candles, and there's many places to get them. And sometimes the side hustle markets are the best way to get to people. From there, you have to play the game and play your game. If there's way too many people in your area selling something, first, look for an area where there's less fighting. That's the whole blue ocean, red ocean theory. A red ocean is an ocean that has plenty of sharks that are fighting for whatever is in there. A blue ocean has no sharks, so there's plenty of free fish to chomp on if you can find that blue ocean. The blue ocean is virgin territory for selling the folks, so try to find an open area to sell to. You know that the market is saturated. You just need to find a marketplace or a particular niche that allows you to jump in there. And maybe the problem is everybody's selling the general product. You need to niche down. You need to go to specific people who want the product, but they want it a specific way. That might be what you need to do to make things happen. You know, people like the stuff. Just need to make sure they like the stuff the way you present it, and you present it just slightly off what the normal folks are doing. Vice versa. Maybe a lot of people think the niche is what's there, and you need to offer up things that are more general. So that means you get a chance to have more sort of non-standard customers coming in. People just sort of hear about it, will come in and test you because it seems like it's more open to the general public as opposed to something that is extremely niche and it's essentially for the specialists, something for the folks that have to be down into it and know the deep details. Think of something like cigars. Cigars are something that you can get really, really deep and detailed with, or you can just have a guy who likes to buy cigars at the convenience store, but you can offer up something that's a little bit more fancy than those things they have behind the counter without having them have to know all the knowledge of what's going on in cigars and humidors and cuts and things like that. You can help them. You can also use your knowledge to get around everyone just trying to throw things out there by teaching them about the product, teaching them why it's so important, teaching them what the big deal is, not because, everybody seems to be selling it. So it's in your top of mind. You have to go through and educate people on what it is that's being sold, why it's being sold, and how it's being sold to people. You can also do a little dirty dealing and kind of push people to the side, push the competition off as not being as good as you are. That takes a little acting, good acting, hopefully, but a little acting to show that you're not selling the same product that someone else is, when in most cases, the product and maybe the actual source are pretty darn similar. So don't fear a reaper in the oversaturated market. Embrace it, but you have to play the game right, because otherwise you're just throwing your name out there in the noise and you'll be in the same situation. You got to play smart. You got to play right. You got to know who the real competition is and who out there are the fakers just trying to get a name out there so they can say they have a side hustle. And hopefully you got more than just a side hustle. You have actual things set aside, such as your own business account, your own tax ID, actual business. We like side hustles, but we also like real businesses. So your question for this week has to do with the first question this week about packaging and your product. Does your packaging make a difference in how you sell your product? Reach to us in social media or email us at businessquestionsansweredhere@gmail.com and let me know your answer to this week's question. You can help us grow and maintain this podcast by visiting our sponsors, including Blinkist for the day at businessquestionsansweredhere.com, and find more information about all we do, the podcast, the archive for episodes, subscription information to all our other things, and of course, submit your questions for review to be answered here on the podcast. Once again, I'm Jay Cleveland Payne, eagerly awaiting your business question to answer here.